Hi everyone! Today will be the very first episode of my Polymer Clay for Beginners series. Today we'll be discussing materials. So I'm going to show you guys today a very large number of other supplies for polymer clay, and these are not necessarily what I recommend, but just what you might need to get started. So let's get right into it. The first tool I always seem to reach for while making creations are dotting tools. Dotting tools are almost a must because I seem to use them for almost every creation. And I got this set of dotting tools from Amazon. You might have seen other crafters have the same type. They're different colors and different sizes. These can be used for texturing in realistic food, making little holes for character charms, and they always seem to come in handy. I got this pen for a very low price, and I definitely recommend that beginners get this because it will come in handy. Chalk pastels are definitely one of my favorites. I make a lot of realistic charms, so this comes in handy for me, but depending on what you're planning on making, this may not be as useful for you. So chalk pastels basically just look like this. I use the red colors for blush, and I use some of the browner shades down here for making shading on food charms. You use the colorful ones to make frosting, icing, you name it. It could be out of your price range. Some of them are cheap. Artist Loft are cheap, but there are more expensive ones like Faber-Castell. So this I recommend for beginners, maybe after a week or two after starting. I recommend that you get the cheaper kind and then move on to the more expensive kind if you so choose. A blade is a must. It should be on your top list of materials to buy along with your roller. You definitely need a blade because you need to cut the clay when you make your creation. So this blade I got from Sculpey in a set, and what I like about this is there's rubber that can be removed. This blade, if you haven't known, is that it bends. So if you want to cut something in a more circular shape, you can cut it down like this, or you can just use it straight like this, and it always goes back to its original form. And this was pretty inexpensive, so I think you should also get this if you're starting out. A staple for a beginner polymer clay artist to have is definitely a roller. I use this acrylic roller, which definitely helps because clay doesn't stick to it, and it's just overall easier and smoother, and when you roll it, it just rolls very smoothly. And it's also long, so if you want to roll out a long strip of clay, it will be useful. I wanted to show you guys all the different types of rollers you can have. This is a plastic roller, which I got as a very beginner last year when I first started, and I really regretted getting this because clay sticks to it, and when you roll out really thin pieces of clay, the clay just breaks. So I don't think you should get the plastic kind. I highly recommend you get the acrylic kind, but as a beginner, you can choose whichever one you want because the plastic one is a tad bit cheaper. Brushes are great for a beginner polymer clay artist to possess because they can be used for many different charms. You can use this type of big brush for any different types of shading on your miniatures. Brushes can also be as tiny as these. These can be used for maybe shading on some pink pastels on character charms to make them have rosy cheeks. Just make sure you have a variety of sizes of brushes. Translucent liquid Sculpey is definitely useful for beginners. You can use this for food charms or you can use it for character charms. Just to name a few, it can be used to make frosting, the eyes of dolls, and just so many different uses. And I do think that beginners should use this. You may not need it like right away, but definitely you should get this maybe after a month or two after you start clay. Next I have this set of 3 tools. This is just kind of like a little blade with this pointed end tip, which I have no idea what it's used for. This blade doesn't cut well, and this pointed end really has no use except sometimes mixing TLS and clay by swishing it down. This is the second tool, and I really don't use this either if you want me to be quite honest. This pointed tip is just like a needle tool, but a little worse to use. And this bottom part, I have no idea what this is used for. And this is the last tool in the set, and I think I've used this tool once for this bottom part, but that's it. This top tool has no use. And this bottom part is like a big ball tool, but it's really not useful because if you can see closely, there's a little indent right here at the top. So if you do make a little hole with the ball tool, it leaves a line inside. I really don't think you need this. The only reason I got it was because it came with a plastic roller, which I thought was useful at the time, and it turned out none of the materials in the set really helped me at all. I think every beginner should have a toothbrush. The great thing about toothbrushes are that they're virtually free because you can just ask your parents or get one from your house. I'm sure everyone has a toothbrush. The bristles can be used for creating texture on cookies, cupcakes, any desserts, food. You might even be able to use it on non-food items and just regular charms. I use my needle tool a lot because I use it to make texture on some of my cake charms, and sometimes I just use this tip to create little indents or just little decorations. This needle tool also came in a set with Sculpey, and I do recommend getting this, but you might not need the other things that come along with it, so you can purchase it separately, but it's not mandatory for beginners because I didn't use this a lot when I first started, but I began using it after I got more involved. Next material would be eye pins. If you're planning on making charms, you will need eye pins to make them into charms. Some people prefer head pins, some people prefer eye screws, but I always go for the eye pins because I think they look better. And this is basically what they look like, and you can snip them down to size and put them into your creations. Here, as you can see, I'm almost out because I use them so much. And again, eye pins, they're all so cheap on Amazon. I got this entire bag of about 50 for, I believe, almost $2, which is a great deal. So I highly recommend you guys buy this also. Sandpaper is inexpensive and very useful. Again, this is mostly used for miniatures or food charms to add texture to the bottom of your charms. But you can also use it for other character charms. You never know when they come in handy. And all you have to do is put your clay on top and you can texture it. And if you texture the top, the bottom will also be textured. And you can buy it at any local store such as Home Depot. Of course, if you're going to be making polymer clay charms, you're going to need polymer clay. There are different types and different brands. I will be discussing that in a future episode. Don't get a bunch of different types at first. Just get the colors you need and then move on from there. Tin foil is great for making texture on any of your charms. If you're making miniature, foil comes in handy a lot. And the great thing about foil is it's basically inexpensive. Most homes will have it in the kitchen. And then just crumple it up to the size preferred. I use my X-Acto knife a bit, but I don't use it as much as my blade. I do use this blade part to sometimes scrape off chalk pastels when I need to use them. I think you guys should get this, but if you have a blade already, you might not want to get this right away. But the good thing about this is that it can be used for other crafts, such as duct tape. So if you're going to do other crafts, why not get it? Because you're going to use it anyways. Fimo Deco Gel is not as necessary as TLS because, in my opinion, Fimo Deco Gel is just a little different from TLS. It is more translucent, so it does create a more realistic effect on some food charms, but this isn't an absolute must. Fimo Deco Gel is quite expensive. It was $15 online, so I definitely recommend getting this later on after you do polymer clay for a while. I definitely use baby wipes a lot, and I use to clean my surface, my hands, and even my tools, basically anything that touches the clay. I get the Huggies brand because the baby wipes stay moist, they're better quality, and overall they just sustain. This pack just opens like this. And you can pull out the baby wipes from here. I got these recently. They were 67 wipes for $2, which is not a bad deal. And you can get this at Walmart, Target, even online, but this is definitely a must for polymer clay beginners. Lastly, I have this set, which I got at Michael's, and I don't know what to say about this one because I use some of the tools and I don't use the other ones. This is basically just a tool where there's a magnet on this side and these different tips fit inside. There's this needle tool, and if you already have a needle tool, this isn't really necessary. I have this pointed rubber tip next. I haven't used this yet because it's not as flexible as I would like, so I can't smooth any clay out, and the pointed tip doesn't really help. I have this large ball tool, which I have used a few times because the largest ball tool I have in the set isn't as big as this or even close, but I don't use this as much as my other ball tools. I mainly got this entire set for this one tool, and I'll be honest, this tool is definitely worth investing in. It helps smooth out clay so much because the top is flexible, so when you smooth out clay, it really helps. And then of course there's this blade, and if you already have an X-Acto knife, you really don't need this. And this blade is like 10 times sharper than an X-Acto knife, and it's at a weird angle. You can easily take one of these tools out and you can stick them in, and it stays in pretty secure, so the product itself does work well. If you haven't bought anything proprietary to this, such as a needle tool or a bulb tool, you should get it because this is a great set. And you might not use a few of the tools like this rubber tool, but the rest definitely come in handy. That is all for this episode of the Polymer Clay series for beginners. I hope you enjoyed this video and found all the information useful, and be on the lookout for upcoming episodes, which I will keep a secret. And I hope you start doing polymer clay, because that is one of the main points of this series. I would like to get as much people interested in polymer clay because it is a great craft and hobby. So thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.